What up, everybody? In this video, we're going to discuss the basics of developing a web development strategy for WordPress. My name is Maestro Stevens, the Fresh Prince of WordPress. Welcome to the Iconic Templates YouTube channel. This channel is dedicated to helping you build a WordPress ecosystem through useful tips, tutorials, and resources. Let's start off right here with the main 3 points we're going to talk about today, right? The main 3 subtopics in today's video. The first one we're going to talk about is business. Then we're going to go into traffic. And then the last is going to be your tech stack, okay? Let's start off with business. And it's very important for you to understand that knowing your business or having an idea about your business when it comes to your goals, your audience, and your competitors is very important. They say that a lot of times we need to think about the end in mind, right? And so your goals, like where do you want to end up? Before you even get started, where do you want to be a month from now, 3 months from now, a year from now, 3 years from now? I'm not going to go too far beyond that because we all know that the zombie apocalypse really changed the whole landscape of how far we plan out. I just want you to think about your goals. And then I want you to think about the audience. Who are you talking to when it comes to reaching your goals? What goals are you helping others reach, right? Because that's very important for us to understand that. Because without understanding your audience's goals, it's going to be very hard for them to be interested in utilizing your offerings to help them reach their goals. And then the next one is going to be competitors. It's helpful to understand our competitors. I'm not saying you got to know them inside and out, but you do need to think about your competitors. That way you can get ideas. You can also compare and contrast what you're doing with them. Let's start off with goals. When it comes to your goals, I think of goals in 3 different bucket types. Now, none of this that you're seeing is exclusive, right? This is just how my mind works. And I want to pass on my mindset, my way of thinking to you, and then let you take it from there. First one we want to think about is transactional based goals. When we talk about transactional based goals, we're really talking about, for the most part, right? For the most part, we're talking about money. When we think about a transactional based goal, you can think about something like, how much money do you want to make by the end of the year or by a certain quarter? Or you can think of, how much do you want to increase your average order value? How much money do you want to make per customer? That's different than your revenue goal, right? You can say, well, I want to make $40 per customer or per client, or I want to make $1,000 per customer or per client. Those are just some examples of a transactional goal. A non-transactional goal are typically the things that we think about that are more about who we want to serve or how we want to accomplish something that's not usually money based. Sometimes people just want to be the most helpful strategist or the most helpful expert in their niche, right? That's not a transactional goal, but it is a goal nonetheless. What kind of goals do you think, or do you have? I was going to say think of, but what kind of goals do you have that would go underneath the bucket of transactional, right? Money-based goals, and then non-money-based goals. And then the last one is going to be measurable. Both transactional and non-transactional, I said that so weird. Both transactional and non-transactional goals should be measurable. How can you measure these goals? That's very important when you're thinking about your web development strategy. When it comes to your audience, now this is not going to go too deep into all the nuances of your target market, right? Or buyer personas, but I just want to touch on how important your audience is. And we want to think about things like demographics or even firmographics if you're a B2B, a business to business type of business. Where do the people live? What kind of car do they drive? What are the ethnicities or the races of your particular target demographic? How many kids do they have, right? And when it comes to firmographics, how much revenue is the company making? How many employees do they have? Think about those things when it comes to your audience, because that way you can start to build out your buyer persona or your customer or client avatar. You also want to think about their interests, their challenges, their goals and motivations. It's really helpful when you are asking your clients, you're asking your customers, or you're doing market research to find these things that they're interested in or what they have trouble with. Where do they want to end up and what gets them excited to even move in the first place? And then the last one is going to be the journey or their path. What path are they taking to get to their goal? That's very important because your website should be a part of that journey. Your website should be a part of that path of getting them to their goals. Now let's touch on competitors. When we think about competitors, and it is kind of similar to the audience, but there's a few key differences that I'm showing you here. We do want to think about geography. Where are your competitors located? Some of them are located physically, some of them are located digitally, they're online, and some are both. Just like when it comes to your audience and demographics, where they live, like your audience, where are your competitors? What geographic location are they? And then you also want to think about the keywords that they're using, because if they're using keywords, that means for the most part that they're looking to optimize their business for Google, and looking at their keywords can help you pretty much not start from a blank slate, right? You can look at their keywords. If there are words that are relevant to you, you can use or borrow those keywords and then use those to create content with as well. And we want to think about word of mouth. What are people saying about your competitors, right? We know where they are, where they're located. We know the kind of keywords. What are they using to attract people to them? And then what are people actually saying about their business? If you can, as they say, get your ears to the streets, you can listen in on what they're saying as far as your competitors' audiences and their customers and their clients. You can get some hints on what you should be doing or could be doing, or what you may want to stay away from because you don't want to get into that area. Looking at your competitors is very, very important. Now we want to get into traffic, right? Traffic is where people are coming to your website, right? That's for the most part. And the main three parts that I want to discuss in traffic or subtopics are going to be sitemap, keywords, and email. Let's touch on sitemap first. When it comes to your sitemap, and I'm going to do a lot of dots connecting. That way we can keep referencing and I can keep doubling down on getting these things embedded in your brain. A sitemap is also a journey or a path to a destination, right? And you want to think about that in conjunction, or think about that in tandem with your audience. As I mentioned before, your audience has a journey. They're trying to get somewhere. They're starting here and they want to end up here. How do we get them here? Well, when it comes to your sitemap, without getting too nerdy and throwing too much jargon in it, a sitemap is a way that Google and other search engines know what's happening on your website. Wireframing or drafting out your sitemap, saying, just like what this image is showing, you got your home page. Particularly everybody has a home page. They have an about page, a contact page. Some people have pricing page. You may have a portfolio page. You may have a blog, you may have a products page. What are the different pages on your website that are relative to your audience's goals? And this is something that you particularly want to draft out. And this will help you understand what your website looks like from a bigger picture. And it also helps search engines understand what your website is as well. Now, when it comes to keywords, and I did touch on keywords briefly before, but when it comes to keywords, we want to think about keywords in these three main ways. We want to think about them how they relate to our business, right? Or our website. So relative keywords, keywords that make sense. They just make sense when it comes to what we offer, what we do. That keyword right there matches me, right? We're trying to play the match game. We also want to think about competitive keywords. We want to think about keywords that your competitors are using, or even keywords that are very competitive in the market. And this is not a one size fits all. I'm just kind of giving you some tips here. But particularly when we talk about competitive keywords, we think about if a keyword has a lot of competition, right? If especially in the advertising world, that means there's a reason for that, right? That means that keyword is leading to the end goal for the user for the most part. Or we can say that that keyword is very important. It's searched often, right? You have a better chance of getting to your audience. You have a better chance of generating the right type of traffic with a competitive keyword. And then we want to think about local keywords, keywords that are pretty much used, for example, in Google Maps. When people are typing things in and they're saying near me, or they're putting in a zip code or a city, those are local based keywords, for local businesses. I want to find something and I want to find it in my area. Those are the three type of keywords I wanted to discuss when you are building and you're thinking about your web development strategy: relative, competitive, and local. That's if you're a local based business. If you're not, just start with relative and competitive. Now, I know this is not necessarily traffic for the most part. Now, this can generate traffic, but I refuse to talk about traffic without talking about how to capture. What is the best way to capture and maintain that traffic? And that is through email marketing. That is one of the best ways of doing that, is by actually getting that person's email when they come to your website. When we're getting their email, we want to think about lists, right? What kind of list or audience can you create so that way you can separate people in your email system? Another way to separate people in your email system is by tagging them. This is one of those debatable topics that I don't want to go too deep into, because not all platforms use either of these. Most platforms use tags, but for example, something like MailChimp, I think MailChimp switched to audiences. They don't even use lists anymore, they use audiences. But something like an Active Campaign or Fluent CRM, that's the plugin I use for my email marketing, they use lists and tags. And the way that I think about lists and tags, again, you have to do your own strategy when it comes to email marketing. But the way I think about lists and tags is a list is something that can be turned on or off. It's kind of like computers when it comes to ones and zeros. Either it's on or it's off. A list is one of those main big buckets, right? And a tag is more of a sub bucket. I think about lists when I think about forms. I have a list called forms, for example, right? And then I tag people based on the type of form they filled out. You can have a list that's called events, right? You have an events list, and then you tag people based on the type of event. So the tag could be the event name. You get my drift here? You get where I'm going with this? That's how I think about lists and tags. Everybody has their own strategy on how they do it, but I just want to give you a kind of a hint on how I do it. And then when it comes to dynamic segments, that's more of an advanced technique when it comes to email marketing, but it is very important and it's easy to do in most email marketing systems. And that's where you are getting a little more detailed when it comes to how you're separating and organizing your subscribers. For example, you may want to organize people by their birth date or by the day they subscribe to your platform. You may want to organize people by their activity, like how active or inactive they are, or even the type of products, the product purchase or the amount, that they've purchased. There's so many different ways you can segment your list dynamically to create like sub lists or I would say sub lists, for example. But it's just a great way for you to get even more detailed and say, hey, these group of people have these things in common, and I want to send a message to these group of people based on these things beyond just my lists and beyond just my tagging system. And that's the best way I can describe, from a simplistic standpoint, dynamic segments. That's email marketing. Again, we're capturing the traffic through our email marketing strategy. Now, let's get into our tech stack, right? This is the thing that most people come to, see or view or look at when it comes to WordPress. Specifically, WordPress is like, what is your tech stack, right? And we're going to talk about functions and features. We're going to talk about technology and analytics, because I feel like analytics is very, very important if we're really going to double down on our goals and we want to measure them. Remember, I said we have to be able to have goals that are measurable. All right. Think of functions of what people want to do, right? Are what your traffic wants to do. Do they want to sign up for something? Are they signing up for your newsletter or for your lead magnet or for your book? What are they signing up for? Do they want to watch something like a video, right? Do they want to read something like your blog? Do they want to listen to something, right? Listening. Do they want to listen to something like your podcast or some type of audio clip? Download. Do they want to search? Do they want to buy something? Sometimes they may want an estimate, right? Or a quote. They may want to get access, right? So get access to a certain content type or even the back end of your website, like their dashboard, their My Account page. And then you have custom content as well. So these are the functions, right? This is what people want to do on your website. Again, we're going back to their journey and their path, your audience. What do they want to do? Now, when it comes to features, this is how they do it. And usually features are in the forms. I know form is the first one, right? They're in the forms of different content types or formats. We have forms. A form can be a feature. If a person is signing up, that's what they want to do. That's the function. The feature would be a form. You would use a form plugin or a form tool. You also have video players. So if they want to watch something, you need some type of video player on your website so they can watch the video. See how I'm matching these things? I wanted to slow it down real quick because I wanted you to understand I'm matching what they want to do with how they do it, right? With some type of format. PDF delivery. So if they're downloading something, maybe they want to download the PDF. That's, the content type. That's a feature. Email marketing, audio player. You may want to have a search bar. Payment processing system, right? If you're doing e-commerce, right? They want to buy something, you need a payment processing system and a calculator. That could be matched up with the estimate or the quote. This is something that I think a lot of people overlook when it comes to their web development strategy is matching the functions with the features. What do people want to do and how they do it? Now let's talk about technology really, really quick. And when I'm speaking on technology for this, I'm talking about hosting, because hosting, there are so many technical and technological nuances when it comes to hosting that it even blows my mind. Like, I'm not a WordPress developer. I'm not a website developer, not by any means, but I understand the fundamentals and I understand some advanced techniques. I don't understand everything that happens in my hosting or with my hosting. And I don't want to understand everything. I understand enough to get where I need to be. And then my developers help me get the rest of the way, right? But when we think about hosting, we want to think about the type of hosting. Do you want to use shared hosting? Do you want to use a virtual private server? Do you want to use cloud hosting like Google or Amazon Web Servers, or a dedicated server where you have your own server, right? I use different type of hosting. My favorite hosting is SiteGround, Amazon, and Google, and DigitalOcean. I know another popular one is GoDaddy, but listen, I'm gonna just keep it all the way real with y'all. I would avoid GoDaddy hosting like the plague. That's just my opinion, but hey, do you, or as I say, do you, boo-boo, do you. But when it comes to hosting, most people are going to use shared hosting, right? Most people are going to use shared hosting. And then from there, the next level would be virtual private server or cloud hosting. Now, I'm going to make a separate video that goes more in depth when it comes to hosting, but I just wanted you to understand that a lot of your technology, a lot of the technology aspects of your website is going to be buried, it's going to be embedded, it's going to be directly tied or associated with your hosting. Choose wisely. Do not go with cheap hosting. Another technology aspect of your website is going to be your theme, right? When we think about our theme, these are a couple of characteristics or qualities that I deem important when it comes to your theme. First of all, it needs to be fast. We are in 2023. And if you're watching this video in the future, hey, I'm hoping that y'all even have faster themes. But hey, your theme needs to be fast. Think about speed. Your theme also needs to be flexible, right? How many different things can your theme do? Or more importantly, how well can you bend it to your will? To your will, right? Is your theme flexible? Is your theme able to go from creating some type of barbershop website to creating a government website, right? I mean, those are two different opposite sides of the spectrum. There are some themes that are dedicated for specific business needs, and there's some themes that are more general-based themes, and they're very flexible. You can build a coaching website or a marketing website or a blog or a plumber website, whatever floats your boat, whatever makes you feel great. Is your theme flexible? Then we want to think about the features. And I kind of touched on this a little bit when I was talking about the flexibility, but I wanted to wait till we got to the features part. How many features does your theme have? Is it feature rich? Is it limited when it comes to the features? I love using themes that are very, very well versed when it comes to features. Just like I love using themes that are very well versed when it comes to flexibility. How does your theme integrate with your plugins or other apps or other third-party software, right? Is your theme integratable? Now, all themes are integratable the same. So you want to use a theme that you can integrate very, very well. How usable is your theme? Is it easy to use? Is it hard to use? Do you have to do all this extra coding and go into your file editor or go into these other aspects of your website? If you're an average user, you don't want to be doing all that. How easy is your theme to use? Are there tutorials out there that can help you use it better, learn it faster? Or is it something where you have to get a special dedicated web developer expert, right? Or specialist to be able to customize your theme? Compatibility, is it compatible with WordPress? WordPress is constantly updating. When I say WordPress, I'm talking about WordPress core. It's constantly updating. So are plugins on WordPress, right? We're going to get to that in a second here. But is your theme compatible with the different plugins, software, tools you're using on your website? Do you have really good theme support? Do you have a way where you can contact the theme creator and get some help when it comes to the theme? Because if you don't, you might be in some trouble. You want to make sure your theme is very supportive. And then, as I mentioned before, when it comes to updates, does your theme get constant and frequent updates? I'm not saying it needs to be updated every week. I mean, no. But I am saying that it needs to be updated monthly, right? You don't want a theme that hasn't been updated in months, let alone years. Does your theme get constant updates? That's very important, and a theme is a part of your technology. Now let's talk about the plugins, because this is something that most people get in trouble with when it comes to WordPress. And I often use the metaphor of like plugins on WordPress is like a kid in a candy store. I mean, we get into WordPress, we get into that WordPress repository, right? And we just start searching for plugins. Let me add this, let me add that. I want gumdrops. I want Skittles. I want Snickers. I love Snickers, y'all. I had to pause there, right there. Whatever. Like, it's just like a kid in a candy store. You will get in trouble if you just add any kind of plugin to your website. You want to make sure that you understand the purpose of the plugin. Every plugin should have a purpose, right? I believe everybody should have a purpose too, but that's a different conversation for another day. And this is not a personal development channel. But when it comes to purpose, your plugins should have a purpose, right? They should help you get something done faster, quicker, sooner, right? They should be a part of your process. Something else that I think a lot of people don't even think about when it comes to plugins is it a standard plugin or where it fits in the market? What do I mean by that? I mean, is it one of those plugins that everybody is talking about, right? that is very popular, that when you think about this one process, right, you think about that plugin. For example, when people think about e-commerce, can you guess what plugin they think about when it comes to WordPress? I'll give you a second here. Boom! WooCommerce. All right, there you go. I tried to give you a little bit more time, but I had to say it. But it's WooCommerce, right? When you think about e-commerce, you think about WooCommerce. That is the 800-pound gorilla. You're not going to get away from that. Now, in another video, I'm going to show you a way where you can get away from that, ironically. But WooCommerce is the 800-pound gorilla, and it is the gold standard of e-commerce, right? Or the industry standard, however you want to call it. You also want to think about categories. I love to categorize my plugins. You know, is this plugin a backup plugin? Is it a security plugin? Is it an analytics plugin? Is it an e-commerce plugin? Is it an affiliate plugin? Is it a block-based plugin, right? What kind of plugin is it? Put it in a category. One great way for you to categorize your plugins is just by using a spreadsheet. I love using Google Sheets. You can use Excel. You can even just write it out on a piece of paper. But how do you want to categorize your plugin? And then you want to think about the plan, right? In the WordPress repo, those plugins are free. But some of those plugins actually have paid versions, premium versions of them. You want to think about, do you need to upgrade to that paid version, to that paid plan? Is it worth it? Why do you need to do it? That's something very important, because paid plugins and premium plugins often help you solve your problems faster and quicker with more features. I mean, that's just the best way to say it. Just with more features that you may need to get where you need to go faster, quicker, easier. And then you want to think about licenses, right? Some plugins have licenses where you can add that plugin to a certain amount of WordPress websites. Some have 1 license, some have 3. Some have 100, some have 1,000, and some have unlimited. It just depends on the company. It depends on their business model and their plans. But licenses is important because you want to know how many websites can you put that plugin on. And then we have integrations. I'm big on automations and integrations when it comes to WordPress, because that's how you get information in and out of WordPress, let alone automating or integrating information within WordPress when it comes to certain plugins. So these are some of my favorite automation integration-based apps. We have the 800-pound gorilla, as I mentioned before, when it came to e-commerce, Zapier, right? Or Zapiers, you know, tomato, right? Tomato. However you want to call it, whatever you want to say. Zapier is the 800-pound gorilla when it comes to automations, when it comes to integrations, except it's not a WordPress dedicated plugin, but it is used with WordPress. Then these next 3 are WordPress dedicated plugins. We have Uncanny Automator, which is one of my favorite ones as well. We have Automator WP, and we have the new kid on the block. The new kid on the block. May not be so new by the time you watch this video, but right now it's a new kid on the block called Short Triggers, and oh my goodness, y'all, I'm gonna have to make a dedicated video just for Short Triggers to show you the power, the magic behind that plugin. It's awesome, it's dope. I love it, right? To me, it's like if Zapier and Uncanny Automator had a baby, they would be sure for the trigger. Yeah, that's supposed to be a joke there. And last but not least, now we're going to talk about analytics. I mentioned analytics before because when it came to measuring your goals, I feel like that there's nothing more important when it comes to understanding what's happening on your website than some type of tracking system. And one of the most popular tracking systems, measuring systems, is Google Analytics. And this is how you can see what's actually happening on your website. Google Analytics 4 is a whole new way of using Google. It is not the universal analytics upgrade or update. They reconstructed it. It's just like it's its own new thing, except it's still called Google Analytics, right? But when it comes to measuring, these are the 2 main ways that you would do so: with events, which are activities, and conversions, right, which are goals. It used to be so hard to set up goals for the average person in Google Analytics. Now they have, voila, They've made it so easy for us to be able to set up goals, and they call them conversions. When you think about your goals in the beginning of this web strategy, can you add those goals to Google Analytics? And the best part about Google Analytics is that you can turn events into conversions, right? Into goals. There's certain activities happening on your website, you can toggle a switch on and it turns it into a goal. It's so easy and it's so awesome. These are the things I want you to think about when it comes to your web development strategy with WordPress. Please subscribe to our channel and turn on your notifications so you get notified when we release new videos.